Hello, everyone, and welcome to your weekly energy healing session. All you need to do is just sit back and relax. There's nothing you need to do. Just be receptive. If you don't want to receive something, don't worry about it. It won't bother you. Um, it is November 5th, 2024. And what just keeps coming up is depression and sadness. So I'm just going to work with serotonin in the belly. So the belly, we have that beautiful small intestine, the gut brain. There's a very delicate balance of serotonin in the gut. And, if our foods, if our, they're pesticides, microplastics, any of the pollutants that come into our bodies and start to impact the metabolic function of each cell, well, we're not going to see things as clearly. And I think what I'm focusing in on are all the people who have um, some form of mental difficulty. I don't want to just call it mental illness because it doesn't mean it's an illness. It can just be a passing moment where, you have a depression, or there's a lack of joy, there's a lack of dopamine, there's an imbalance in the brain. Then there are some people who do actually have, big problems when it comes to the brain, whether it's chemical, but now they're saying so many things that maybe it's not even chemical. So who the heck knows? I don't want to really look at it that way. I just want to look at it as we can help the body find that particular balance despite the imbalances that come into the body, those toxins that come into the body, or if your gut brain isn't discerning and you actually take in a toxin, right? Alcohol is basically poison, but people drink. They even celebrate and they drink. And some people say, well, if you have a little bit, yeah, well, if you have a little bit of poison, your body can deal with it. But we have a lot of poisons that are in the environment. So I'm not recommending anything. I'm not saying drink or don't drink, but I'm saying what these things are found to do to us. So maybe we could just help and support the liver and the heart and the small intestine for this session. So the liver is what is going to organize and plan everything we're about to do in the body. That's the consciousness of the liver. There's also the heart and the small intestine that are all about intuition. They're about discernment. There are more things, but we're just going to focus on those for today. And we want them to really tune into this fine balance of serotonin that if it goes off, we can find ourselves a little bit depressed. We can find ourselves, emotionally, struggling. It can affect the brain function. I was just thinking something that, I don't know what that is that I'm kind of tuning into, but I'm definitely feeling it in the belly. So let's say there's even whether you're thin, overweight, whatever it is, you can have areas of the gut brain that can be kind of not moving. They're not moving very well. So usually I focus on the microbiome or digestion. Here we're focusing on, even if it's a tiny bit of fatty tissue or tissue itself that kind of doesn't integrate with its function in the gut brain. So even if it's a cell in the small intestine, one cell, your brain is going to seek that out to help it enliven and have a proper metabolic function. That it's going to include all of the dynamics in the cell. What I'm seeing specifically are the silica chips and the mitochondrial DNA for energy. Now, we're looking at the loss of energy in the mitochondrial DNA, the generator of energy in the cell, as part of the stress factors that are collective consciousness. Those are going to be wars, We've got the American election today. We've got, yeah, all kinds of hot areas in the world. Um, we've got all those people traveling to get into the United States. Just sometimes I tune into those people and think, God, they're going through a terrible journey to climb up through, many, many countries and get into the United States, and how hard that journey would be, and how many children are on that journey, how many women are struggling, people die on that journey. So that always makes me really, I'm even tearing up right now as I think about those poor people that are traveling. I think I kind of found where my body was tuning into. I obviously found it. I don't know if it's going to be everybody's. Somebody could be the election. Somebody could be Ukraine. It could be wherever. Um, so the gut brain can also be tuning into our past lives. So I think that has a strong connection. So wherever your body mind might have a difficulty in digesting something in your life that is linked to the collective, you can just feel into that right now. It could be anything going on in the world, even if it's, I'm not able to buy groceries right now, let's say. Some people are struggling to buy groceries. Some people are struggling to pay their bills, right? There's a lot of difficulty going on in the world. And then there we go. I already feel the release. It's beautiful. This massive sadness that came up is just moving right out. And I feel warmth across the navel area and down. That might not be your area, but that definitely is mine, where there's a frozen area. By the way, just so you know, heart, small intestine is sadness. It is where you would, have tears of sadness, not grief. Grief is going to be your lungs colon. I'm bringing that in because it feels like the lungs can be, grief stricken for whatever loss there is, right? So if we're looking at people who've lost their jobs in the world, or you've lost your job, people who have lost family members, or people that have lost family members. If you lose, there's also this massive aging population, and them losing their sight, them losing their functionality in the world, their utility in the world. That's always pretty difficult. And there's a lot of grief in there. There's grief and sadness. I'm getting like cramping in the belly right now, and grief just moving out through the lungs. So for those of you who are experiencing this really strongly, you may have, a very robust bowel movement. It's probably necessary. I'm ensuring that it's your stuff. You're not draining out anyone else's. This is your reaction to the world, because I do have strong reactions. I wouldn't be doing world sessions if I didn't feel like the planet and my brethren need this kind of thing. I do it because I think we need it. So I think those of you who listen and join in, you feel you need it too, and you're sharing with others as well. So that benevolence, that love, that compassion, that kindness, is spreading. And I'm still feeling really, really stressed now, more in the lungs and the neck and the throat. So there's something to do with expression. And maybe that has to do with this is a hard one, because it's a transition in the way, from my childhood to the present. There's also many cultures who still think this way, but I'm in Canada, and Canada and America, North American way of thinking, is quite dominant in many places in the world as well. But still, this is my area where I live, so it might not impact everyone, but we have this tendency to, and I can already feel it leaving. I haven't even told you what this link is, but it is a link to needing to, like, this idea that it's my right to say whatever I want to say. This has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Okay, this has to do with the individual. You can say whatever you want, of course you can. Well, obviously, within the bounds of no inciting violence, of course. But I'm looking at this idea within the individual that is, I need to say everything that's on my mind. So I'll make it a little funny instead of being so serious. I feel very serious today. Let's shake that off a little bit. So many, many years ago, the United States was always the place you went to for the best service in the world. Like you would go to the US and go, wow, service is incredible. Then around the 2000s, I traveled to the US most of my life. There was a period where there was a break for about a decade. And then all of a sudden I'm traveling to the US again. And I start to get a little disconcerted. I'm like, what's going on with service here? And I started to just speak out about it very often. And everybody's looking at me, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? I guess they had gotten used to it, but for me, it was just like a culture shock. America was the place of service. Now there was no service. It was more like the employee was important and the customer wasn't. Now, of course, we know, some places they you can go in and the customer is very important, and some places nobody cares about the customer at all. It's like, you're not important. I'm not going to help you. I'm not going to serve you. I'm not going to do anything. So it's fascinating, these changes. Now, why am I bringing that up? Well, I always think of, the old days, the server would come and say, my name is, and would talk. And then the joke was, the server comes and they say, how are you? And you turn around fine and you say, how are you? And they start telling you all their personal lives. Like, oh, I have a bit of a stomach ache. I have this. It's like, wait a minute. I don't need to hear all of this, right? So life has changed that way in many ways. So this has become part of the throat chakra, that some people feel that if they don't say it all, they're not permitted, or they're blocking their self-expression, which is just kind of, I'm sure you can get that doesn't quite make sense, right? You can express yourself in many ways, but you don't have to tell everybody every single thing about yourself. It's not necessary. So I'm already feeling that choking. I felt like I was being suffocated is already moving. There's no need to say everything. Yeah, that you're going to have to discern. So we're doing small intestine, throat. This is giving us this capacity to discern. We always discern, when and where we're going to do something, right? You're going to be naked in your home. You could be whatever, but you're not going to run around naked, especially here in the middle of the snow. It's going to be bad for you. It could be bad for you for many reasons, but one would be it's too cold. All right. So these are things that we want the small intestine to help us with. It's not just a free for all that I express everything I want to express. I need to discern for the benefit of myself. So a lot of people feel like, if I don't express something, then I'm curtailing my, self-expression. No, you're keeping yourself safe. You're keeping yourself safe. You're keeping your loved ones safe. You're, just saying what, like, my favorite one is, if a friend asks you, do I look good in this outfit? And you really do not like that kind of clothing, I'm not going to necessarily tell them. I'm not necessarily going to tell them. I might have some friend that I'm going to be completely honest with. But what if somebody really likes something that I don't like? So what? So what? It's not my business. I just don't like it. It's not their problem. They might look just fine. They like it. It's just fine. But I'm not going to tell them that I don't like it if it's just my taste. If they don't look proper in it, I might help them out. But if they're in something like, I don't know, polyester floral print is not my favorite clothing. Okay. So, right away I feel like I'm being suffocated. All right. But that doesn't mean they are. They might be just fine, in wearing that. So that's the discernment we need to be looking for within ourselves, that we are not here to just say anything. Plus, my opinion, your opinion is really not necessarily important. What is that saying? Your opinion of me is none of my business. That's a good way to live. All right. So yeah, that really cleared up the throat. So that can be collective consciousness. I'm just thinking of, kids, like if our kids are telling us that, you're not allowed to say that because you're hurting my feelings, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, you should do this, which we know in Matrix is really unhealthy for the Matrix, that the children should be telling the parents how to behave and what to do. Just go off and live your own life. You don't need to go back and tell your parents what to do. It doesn't help the child, nor does it help the parent. And that's one. The other one is, we don't have to listen to what everyone has to say about every little detail of their lives, in certain circumstances. It's not absolutely necessary. All right. So I find that people feel, there's also a piece on people feeling like they repel others. That discernment could really help for those who feel they're repelling others. I don't know if that makes sense, but that feels like a strong one. And, all of this can relate to compassion. We may not have, I'm just hearing something I'm not even sure if I need to say it all, but, our society is becoming more and more narcissistic, and it's tough for those who are not. So there are plenty of people who are not selfish. They have a hard time in life because they're not selfish, because, good percentage of people have figured out it's good to be a certain amount of selfish, doing for oneself. But then there's a group of people who don't really do for themselves. And they need to bolster up and be able to do a lot more. And that way they can discern when it comes to someone who is demanding too much. Ooh, those are a lot of different self-expressions. This is all in the gut brain. Don't worry about the complexity of it or the simplicity of it. We're just triggering areas that need to be released within the gut brain so we can go back to the levels of serotonin. You can imagine if we're stressing to do something like that, serotonin levels will get stressed. The gut brain will get stressed. The dopamine levels, your body chemistry, will get stressed out. We want to get that stress out of the way. All right, there we go. Fascinating session, I think. Hope you all have a lovely week, and be well. Bye.